Hey friends, this is Dixon Kavanaugh, and welcome to another episode of Outloud with Dixon, where we will explore wisdom, get creative, and better appreciate this fun, chaotic, and beautiful world that we live in. Today, I will be reading the second agreement from the 4 agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. But first, a quick thanks to all my listeners, friends, and family for the outpouring of love and support for the podcast. The feedback and recommendations really make a difference and help the podcast grow in reaching more people. And if you're joining us for the first time today, I'm happy you're here. If you like absorbing the wisdom of a good book, exploring mindfulness, and believe that you have within yourself the ability to do, be, and give more, then you're in the right place. As I like to often repeat, in becoming more as people, we increase our capacity to help others. In this personal development, this intellectual, emotional, and spiritual growth all starts with a newborn awareness. It's a burst of fresh energy when we get goosebumps and when our eyes light up with a new perspective of the world and our role in it. For today's reading, this newfound awareness, this second agreement, is do not take things personally. And as you will hear, that really came in handy for me just a few days ago. And yes, it involves a naked prisoner chained to my ambulance. We will hear a lot of reasons why we shouldn't take things personally, the consequences if we do, and the ensuing bliss that follows if we don't. But I want to ask you a question that I found myself asking throughout the chapter, and it's this. What does it mean to take something personally? What do I feel like when I take things personally? What are some examples of a time when I took something personally in the past? And I know for my analytical friends out there, those sharp minds that like to measure and track everything, they might be wondering, well, how the heck do I know if I'm taking something personally? And better yet, how am I to know if I'm making any progress? And our friend Miguel Ruiz has a terrific solution. He asks, do you take things personally when they are in your favor? Do we ride the high of someone's praise, yearn for, desire, even chase after someone else's approval? If the answer is yes, which, if most of us are being honest with ourselves, it is, then we are more likely to be in a position to get hurt and to take things personally when a critique goes against us and the praise doesn't come. Asking if we take things personally when it works in our favor is a great measuring stick to track our progress. And as a quick reminder before we jump into the reading, past episodes would start with me setting the scene, followed by an uninterrupted reading of the passage, closing with some nice analysis and practice. Given that the 4 Agreements is a newer book, this episode will have shorter passages with analysis and discussion interspersed throughout the episode. It's a bit different of a setup, but the same good stuff at its core. To plant the seed in what you will hear, Ruiz talks about personal healing, and when we choose to not accept someone else's poison, to not take things personally, we heal ourselves, while the person who spoke gets even worse. I like to take things a step further, and I want to say that when we don't take things personally, we not only heal ourselves, but we heal the person who spoke it. It's a win-win. So if not taking things personally sounds like a good deal, if you want to live in a state of bliss and experience some inner healing, and if you want to hear how I got into a colorful altercation with a naked man being transported from an East LA prison, gather around and listen close and join me as we dive into the world of the 4 Agreements. Quote, the second agreement is don't take anything personally. Whatever happens around you, don't take it personally. Using an earlier example, if I see you on the street and I say, hey, you're stupid, without knowing you, it's not about you, it's about me. If you take it personally, then perhaps you believe you are stupid. Maybe you think to yourself, how does he know? Is he clairvoyant? Or can everybody see how stupid I am? You take it personally because you agree with whatever was said. As soon as you agree, the poison goes through you and you are trapped in the dream of hell. What causes you to be trapped is what we call personal importance. Personal importance, or taking things personally, is the maximum expression of selfishness because we make the assumption that everything is about me. During the period of our domestication, we learn to take everything personally. End quote. I like this quote because it serves as an intro. It's clear, simple, and straight to the point. It's like, look, taking things personally is just our ego feeling attacked. Our mood and sense of self-worth is riding on someone else's perception of us. The better alternative is to take back our personal power, to take responsibility for how we feel and not get dragged into someone else's worldview. Quote, even when a situation seems so personal, even if others insult you directly, it has nothing to do with you. What they say, what they do, and the opinions they give are according to the agreements that they have in their own minds. Their point of view comes from all the programming they received during domestication. If someone gives you an opinion and says, hey, you look fat, don't take it personally. Because the truth is that this person is dealing with his or her own feelings, beliefs, and opinions. That person tried to send poison to you, and if you take it personally, then you take that poison and it becomes yours. End quote. I've been lucky enough to put this second agreement into practice in a big way. So I'm in East Los Angeles. It's 11 at night and my partner and I are responding to a call at a prison. I'm thinking it'll be a pretty slow call, right? I mean, he's going to be handcuffed with a bunch of guards around him. Nothing's gonna happen. Wrong. We pull up on scene, and there are what seems to be about 30 prison guards and county sheriffs all surrounding this one guy. Oh, and he's naked, and he's yelling at everybody. And yes, I'm in charge of getting him onto my gurney. Just as my partner and I are getting close enough to secure him to our gear, he lunges with his head like a battering ram right into the face shield of one of the sheriffs. The whole time I'm thinking, Jesus Lord, what did this guy do? I feel like I'm feet away from Hannibal Lecter. With some manhandling and stern words later, we get him onto the ambulance and to the hospital ER, which has its own section for inmates. The whole time he's cussing everybody out, racial slurs, reading our name tags out loud and saying that when he gets out, he's going to hunt us down. The whole shebang. On top of all that, the guy was smart. Not only was he smart, but he was funny. I mean, some of his insults in a different context would have been downright hilarious. And that's when things got personal. My laughing got his attention, and he went full tilt in his verbal assault against me. Even then, I was kind of able to laugh it off. But then he did something I didn't expect. He cocked back and hawked a full spit right onto my chest, right under my badge. I wish I could say I politely wiped it off, and it wasn't even a big deal. In reality, for just a moment, I pictured ripping him off the gurney and smashing his head through the wall. Kind of like the scene in the movie when Batman is all upset at the Joker, and the Batman beats the heck out of him, and the Joker just laughs the whole time. But in that same moment that my eyes flashed red, I remembered what I had been reading right before this call. Right before this call, I had just read a little chapter about not taking things personally. I also got to see everyone else react and blow up, and how their anger and attention only fed the prisoner's delight. Everyone was absorbed in his poison, and he loved it. So did I avoid taking his decision to spit on me personally because I'm a saint? Of course not. If anything, my first impulse was pretty brutal. But because I had been reading this book just before the call, I was in a good frame of mind and primed to think with more clarity. I had just enough space to break the bad habit, to interrupt that pattern of taking things personally, and it proved just enough to have a totally different experience. And also, is it fair to say that this prisoner, who had just been more or less beat up by 30 different guards, had his own opinions, beliefs, and worldview? That he wasn't attacking me personally, but was just speaking his view of the world onto me? Sure is. Quote, even the opinions you have about yourself are not necessarily true. Therefore, you don't need to take whatever you hear in your own mind personally. Part of the mind is speaking, and the other part is listening. It is a big problem when 1,000 parts of your mind are all speaking at the same time. This is called mitote. Remember? The mitote can be compared to a huge marketplace where thousands of people are talking and bartering at the same time. Each one has different thoughts and feelings. Each one has a different point of view. The programming in the mind, all of those agreements we have made, are not necessarily compatible with each other. Every agreement is like a separate living being. It has its own personality and its own voice. There are conflicting agreements that go against other agreements and on until it becomes a big war in the mind. The mitote is the reasons humans hardly know what they want, how they want it, or when they want it. End quote. I love the imagery of this passage. The crowded marketplace with 1,000 talking heads. I also like to imagine what it would feel and look like if at the head of this marketplace was a single, clear voice, and everything was in sync and not in conflict. What would this clarity feel like? Would you feel like a leader? I imagine that this congruence between our thoughts and actions would feel something like harmony, something like bliss. But there is a dark side. Sure, our thoughts and actions can be in synchronicity with one another, but what if they are destructive? People will go to such great lengths to avoid the pain of inner conflict that they will accept the identity of a drug addict, a drunk, or a lazy piece of you-know-what, all in an attempt to achieve some inner congruency and to avoid the pain of having to change. How does this relate to not taking things personally? It highlights the importance of human choice, of choosing to interpret the world in a way that benefits us, choosing to interpret the information other people give us with their words and actions, and our own inner dialogue in a way that supports healing and loving kindness. Quote, "In that state of bliss, you are making love all the time with everything that you perceive." End quote. Making love all the time sounds nice, doesn't it? So right now, imagine, what might it look like to not take things personally? What will it feel like just as someone is saying or doing something hurtful, and as you are about to respond with your own insults, your own pain? What does it feel like to choose something else? What do you say in this new scenario? And as you breathe in and breathe out, consider, in which scene are you happier, calmer, more in line with your values? Breathing in, breathing out. And with the corners of our mouths to the sky, smiling, we let it go. Before we go, remember, live with presence, confidence, and love.